It was May 23rd, 2011, when Lady Gaga dropped Born This Way, what many consider to be her third album. For many, including myself, I consider this to be Lady Gaga's Imperial era. This is an era where she had top 10 hits, she was impossible to ignore, and she was part of the cultural zeitgeist. From the controversial cover to just the rollout of the entire album, there's so much to talk about, but once again, I'm only going to talk about the singles, my favorite deep cuts, and the impact of the era. So let's get into it. Born This Way was the first single. It came out on February 11th, 2011, and she describes it as a magical message. Many accuse the song of being a shameless knockoff of Madonna's Express Yourself, but nonetheless it hit #1 and it smashed on the charts. The music videos, visuals forever remain iconic in many ways. And not to get too sappy, the first time that I actually heard the song, I was in class, in my health class in the 9th grade. Yes, I'm that old. And I remember hearing it on the radio, using a radio app on my iPod Touch, because I was excited to hear what the song was about. And at the time, I wasn't out to anybody. And when I heard this, I didn't really even realize I had been queer at the time. But there was a sense of comfort that I got from hearing the song that it's impossible to replicate. I don't know why, but it just has a personal connection to me. And it does have a personal connection to so many other people. A lot of younger gays don't understand this. But, for us dinosaurs, the song definitely opened up a lot of barriers. Gaga herself opened a lot of barriers. I'm not saying that she's the sole champion of gay rights, but in the zeitgeist and in the culture, she did so much. And the song is kind of like the Christmas tree topper of sorts for this sort of social movement thing that she was trying to do at the time. The next single would end up being one of her most controversial songs ever. It was Judas. The next single would end up being one of the most controversial things Gaga has done in her career. The song is Judas, and many accused it of being a knockoff of Bad Romance. Who cares? Bad Romance is a banger, and so is this one. I like Judas. The breakdown, the look, the audacity, the bombastic energy, the music video, the song itself, it's a really good song and it deserves so much more. Can we talk about the bridge? Can we talk about that bridge? That bridge is iconic. And honestly, the dance in the music video and the dance in the live performances, it just slays me. This is artistry at its highest level. Once again, she angered the church, but come on, she knew what she was doing with that one. The third single would end up being The Edge of Glory, which has a very interesting story behind its music video. Well, to start off, the song wasn't even meant to be a single until they'd seen how successful it was on digital sales. A lot of critics say that this is the album highlight. I agree with that statement. It is one of her best songs to date. The lyrical content is amazing. The vocals are a serve. The song was about or inspired by love and what she had seen in the last moments of her grandfather's life. So it's a very emotional, very powerful, poignant song that just really is her song. On the topic of the music video, which is really understated and sweet and just her on a staircase, the original concept was far higher in budget and in theme and in visuals. It was supposed to be mermaid theme. Joseph Kahn, who is now known for working with Taylor Swift on a lot of her music videos from the Reputation and 1989 eras, he was supposed to do something, but they had a falling out, so we never got the music video idea. Part of me believes that those visuals or those imagery would end up being recycled and reused in some way for the next single, which is You and I. You and I was never really my favorite song on the record, though I have an appreciation for it now that I didn't have back then. Back then I was really expecting bangers from her. I was a child then, and now I'm old. I finally kind of understand down-tempo songs and how important it is to strike a contrast and highlight the other parts of yourself as an artist. Gaga in this track really foreshadowed, to me at least, what she'd eventually end up doing on the Born This Way soundtrack. It's just such a nice track. It's very mellow, it's very chill, but the vocals are really powerful. The music video is really interesting. She had an alternate ego. Please forgive me if I mispronounce it. It was Joe Calderoni, I think. I don't know, but it was really funny. I remember a lot of Stan Twitter or ATRL stans would make fun of her for dressing up as a dude. I thought it was charming. I thought it was endearing that she was really acting, that she was like getting her alternate ego out there and really dedicating herself to a role. So it foreshadowed her acting ability, in my opinion. You and I is so interesting in that. And the last single would end up being Marry the Night, which was the opening track of the album. Underrated cut. I thought it deserved more. The music video is really interesting and inspiring because it takes into account a very tragic sort of accident. I remember she had an issue with her hip that caused her to cancel part of her tour and just stop touring for a while, and this song was sort of like released at that time to remind the public that she's still not giving up at the moment, if I recall correctly. Honestly, I'm just going off my memory banks for this one, though honestly I could be remembering all of this, but regardless, very powerful song, very good single. Could have been an earlier single and smashed a little harder, but fifth singles tend to not do as well as the first four because everyone has the album by then. This album sold 1 million copies in its first week, though there was controversy over whether or not that was legitimate because she put the album on sale for 99 cents on Amazon, causing an entire rule to be made for the Billboard Top 200 or something, but that's another story for another time. Now it's time for me to go into the deep cuts, or at least songs that I really liked from the record that weren't singles but still hold a special place in my heart. If I don't cover a specific song, I'm sorry. There's so many tracks on this record, so I'm just gonna go into them. Government Hooker remains one of Gaga's most underrated tracks, from the production to the Gregorian chant to the subject matter of the alleged romance between Marilyn Monroe and JFK. This song slaps really hard. I don't see it ever being considered planned for a single just because of the subject matter, though she would end up revisiting the JFK motif in a live performance for Do What You Want during the art pop era. Really cool song, love it. Americano is one of the more mixed reception songs. I've seen people label it as chintzy, but I like it personally, especially considering that it's about the repeal of Prop 8 in California, which denied same-sex marriage rights. And also it was this really specific song from her perspective about Mexican immigrants. It combined mariachi sounds and Latin music elements, and her voice is so dramatic on it. It's one of the campiest records that she's ever done. It's so campy that it naturally fit into the 2011 classic animated movie Puss in Boots. It plays over the credits and it feels natural in there, which is really weird. It's operatic, it's brash, it's bold. It never was meant to be a single. It's just a fun song that she wanted to put on the record, and we appreciate her for it. It's brave. Now, an absolute classic is Scheiß, which is German for shit. It's Lady Gaga's most iconic song from the record, in my opinion, even though it was never made as a single. The song is just amazing. It has a pro-feminist slant. It is danceable. It is catchy. The fake German lyrics, Gaga's accent. It's everything. I love this track to death. Red One's production here is amazing. It's so cheesy and chintzy and funny, and it's something that you can just dance to. It's iconic. Her performance of it on the Enigma tour thing that she did in Vegas is brilliant. I love it. It's really funny. And it's one of her best songs ever, in my honest opinion. I just love the drama of it all. I just love the energy of it. I wish it'd been a single, but it's just too weird. If you played it for a local, they'd probably like lose their mind finding out this is Lady Gaga or something. Like they'd be like, what is this? But I love it. The last deep cut that I'm going to discuss is Fashion of His Love, which was only included on the special edition of the album. I love this song, especially after finding out that it was written as a tribute to the late Alexander McQueen. It was written shortly after he died, after he committed suicide. It was super unfortunate at the time because Alexander McQueen is a good friend of Lady Gaga's. I think she even debuted Bad Romance at one of his shows. So it's just heartbreaking, especially knowing who the song is about. But at the same time, it's just such a well-composed pop song. The bridge is actually taken from a song that she wrote with Space Cowboy called Earthquake. It was an unreleased track. I love the lyrics. I love the vibes from it. The instrumental's really good, actually. It feels like a classic 80s track. There's a Fernando Garibay remix that also amplifies and makes the song feel more like it's a part of this record, because it does sound a little bit distinct. Okay, so now it's time for me to talk about the impact of the era. As with all Imperial eras, for people who are new to standom, once again, Imperial eras are unavoidable eras. So think about Taylor Swift's 1989 era, think about the Thank You Next era for Ariana Grande. These eras are hard to top, in my opinion. I don't think Gaga will ever have like an era as big as Born This Way. And honestly, that's hard to do. This era was giant. It was everywhere. We all knew who Lady Gaga was. She was extremely relevant at the time. Why do I bring this up? Because Imperial eras are usually followed by smaller eras or an era of backlash. Just because you're overexposed to the public, they get bored of you, especially if you're frequently in the spotlight, though the rules may have changed now because of social media and the ability to just drop music whenever. I do think that norms are breaking, but these norms were definitely around at the time, which created this atmosphere that I was talking about in my previous video. There's this atmosphere of backlash, or just the public trying to find any excuse to kind of be bored of you and media turning against you. In my opinion, I think this era was sort of a last hurrah to weird auteur Gaga, in that weird auteur Gaga would be lauded by the public, because art pop is auteur and weird and fun and kinetic and great, in my honest opinion. I'll talk about it in the next video. Born This Way is sort of like the last era, in my honest opinion, where the public was here for weird shenanigans. She did the egg thing, she did the meat dress, she did the Judas video. There's only so much public goodwill that you can kind of burn on fun spectacle, and she used up a lot. She cashed a lot of her cards in for this era to great effect. Because let's face it, I don't think I could live without any of these things happening. They're just iconic. But the novelty of Lady Gaga started to wear off, in my honest opinion, at least in terms of the general public. I can never get bored of Miss Germanata. She's iconic. I started to notice, at least in my personal life, when I was, living in the era, people were starting to turn on her. Twitter was starting to make negative memes against her, and people were comparing her to Katy Perry, who had launched the iconic Teenage Dream era at the time, which was the complete inverse of whatever Born This Way was trying to be. People were trying to start to kind of create this mentality of let's stick down Gaga. And it sounds paranoid, but from a Stan's opinion, I just noticed that there was just negative buzz around this time. And all of that negative buzz built into the entire chaos behind the scenes and in the forefront for the art pop era, which is the next video. Thank you so much for tuning into this. I'm sorry if I kind of end on a cliffhanger. I really prioritize art pop in many ways because I have so much more to say about that album and that record, but I will always appreciate Born This Way for its cultural impact, for the bops, the jams, and ultimately the comfort that it gave to the LGBT community, as well as anyone who was just feeling out of place around that time. As again, like, subscribe, follow, hit that notification bell when the art pop video comes out. I live stream, though the days are going to be sporadic in the upcoming weeks. Thank you so much for your time. I will see you next video. Bye!